So the syllabus areas in the paper 1 of public administration. So broadly, the syllabus in the paper 1 is classified into theory and its practice. So in the theories category and practice category, the application part of the theory is the practice. So what are the areas connected with these aspects? So the chapter 1 is introduction chapter. So introduction to public administration, where you would be dealing with the meaning and scope and significance of public administration. So we have to understand what is meant by the public administration. Then the scope of public administration, the growing significance of public administration, because public administration is all about administration in the government. Administration in the government in the sense the governance process. The act of government is the governance. What government do is the governance. And generally we describe this particular aspect as administration. So public means government, administration means getting things done. So what the government do and what the government get things done. So this is all about the public administration process. Then the significance of public administration. Now, what is the significance of public administration means? That there is administration, a little bit of administration in everybody's life. Everybody is either influenced by the public administration or influencing the public administration. Either we are administering or we are administered. Either of these two things are being done. Administered means getting ruled. Administering means ruling. So either we are the administrators, the people are the administrator because it's a democracy. Or we are getting administered by the government. So government is making things happen. So either of these two things are there. And public administration is also important because in every walk of life there is administration. Right from womb to tomb. From womb, meaning even before the birth, to the tomb, even after the death. Before the birth and even after the death, the influence of administration is existing. That is the significance of public administration in brief. Then the scope of public administration. Scope of public administration deals with what is to be studied in public administration. Various areas of study. Now, what are the areas of study in public administration? The areas of study in public administration covers everything related to the government. Government is legislature, executive, judiciary in a democracy. In a democratic government, government implies a combination of the three organs: legislature, executive and judiciary. That is the fundamental element. That is the practice-oriented scope of public administration. Then what is the theory-oriented scope of public administration? The theory-oriented scope of public administration deals with what is to be studied in public administration as a theory. It starts with the theories of public administration, and most of the theories of public administration are connected with the management theories. What usually people study as a part of the MBA are also studied in public administration. And most of the management theories are being borrowed into public administration also. Because public administration was not a subject of study in the original process. In its original position, public administration was studied as a part of political science. So it was only in 1887 for the first time, there was a scholar called Woodrow Wilson. So this Woodrow Wilson was considered as the father of public administration. So Woodrow Wilson has recommended that public administration should be studied separately from the political science, because political science is statecraft, is related to the statecraft. It is all about the politics, and while administration is a professional activity, and as a professional activity it should be studied separately from the political science. So it should not be merged with the political science. Hence, since 1887, public administration has emerged as a separate subject. So since then, what is to be studied is the biggest question in public administration. So since 1887 till date, it is more than a century. Still, public administration is said to have in a confusion whether it has to study, whether it is public policy or anything else. So various areas of study in public administration, ranging from the theories of public administration from the management, and several theories are also borrowed from political science, and several theories have been borrowed from several other social sciences also, like it is influenced by the sociology. Suppose several theories like Bureaucratic Theory by Max Weber. Bureaucratic Theory by Max Weber is borrowed from sociology. Max Weber is a sociologist, and bureaucracy is a social phenomenon, and it is the bureaucrats who are actually carrying the administration. So all the government employees are considered as the bureaucrats, and how a bureaucrat is recruited, how a bureaucrat behaves, all these things would be studied as a part of the bureaucratic theory that was developed by Max Weber, a German sociologist. So a sociological theory, several management theories, and even from the engineering also we have borrowed certain theories. Like there is a scholar called Frederick Taylor. Frederick Taylor is basically an engineer, an industrial engineer. He proposed a theory called scientific management, managing the industries scientifically. Usually, even in BTech also, if you happen to be a mechanical engineer, usually the candidates will study in the first year, I think, scientific management, various techniques and principles of scientific management. We also study those principles related to the scientific management. So likewise, that the several theories have been borrowed from various other subjects. So therefore, public administration is a multidisciplinary subject. So a multidisciplinary subject means fundamentally government itself is multidisciplinary. Because if you look at the ministries and departments in the government, every department and ministry is having some connection with some subjects, right? Now suppose you have Ministry of Space, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Ocean Sciences, and there is a Ministry of Earth Sciences, Ministry of Environment. Then we have Ministry of Finance, Railways, then Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So all these ministries means they are all working in the government. Everything has a relevance to administration. Though they look like pure science related, geography related areas, environmental related areas, but still these departments and ministries in the government are dealing with the administration of different things. They are all about the public policy. So therefore, there is nothing that public administration would not study. Everything is a part of the public administration. So therefore, it is a multidisciplinary subject. That is more than interdisciplinary. There are two words called interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. Interdisciplinary is that a subject that is influenced by other subjects. While multidisciplinary means a subject that borrows topics from various other subjects and influences other subjects also. Not just borrowing the things, but also influencing the things. This is a multidisciplinary nature of a public administration. All right. So all those dimensions of scope and significance of public administration would be studied as a part of introduction chapter. And in the second chapter, you have administrative thought. So in the administrative thought, Several theories would be studied as a part of this, including scientific management, classical theory, bureaucracy, then human relation theory, decision making theory, and participative management theory are the various theories that are studied as a part of public administration, administrative thought. Administrative thought means the theory, the thinking. The term theory comes from this thought and thinking. So, because a scholar would be having a thinking, scholastic thinking, a theoretical orientation, and he has an idea, and that idea is converted into a systematic body of knowledge. Idea has to be converted into a systematic body of knowledge to be called as what is known as the theory. So, because when you have an idea, you develop a hypothesis. And what is a hypothesis? Based on your idea, you assume that something will happen because of a specific cause and effect relationship. Now, what is that cause and effect relationship? For everything there is a reason, is the cause, and for every phenomena there will be a result, and that is the effect. A reason and result, cause and effect. So, if you could able to make a cause and effect, a reasonable relationship between these two, then that will develop into a theory. So, a specific phenomena will result in a specific reason will result in a phenomena, and when that phenomena happens, there will be a consequence out of it. So, this is systematized. When this is systematized, that is keeping in a systematic order, these ideas have to be kept in a systematic order. When it is kept in a systematic order, it is known as a systematic body of knowledge. And this systematic body of knowledge is known as a theory, that's all. And a collection of these theories in public administration are called as the administrative thought. So, like we have these theories like scientific management theory, human relation theory, classical theory, then decision making theory, participative management theory. All those theories are several 6 to 7 theories are there, and these 6 to 7 theories are like the heart of the entire syllabus. From the point of view of syllabus in public administration, the second chapter is like a heart. Why this is the heart? Because understanding the theories of public administration is necessary for the application. All the subject, entire subject can be understood easily when you command this particular chapter, the theories. So relatively it takes more longer time when compared to the other units. So that is the theories of public administration. And a third chapter is administrative behavior. So this administrative behavior deals with how the administrative system behaves. But remember that administration as a process will not behave. But administration comprising of the people, right? So as I told you in the beginning, every one of us are either administered or administering. We are either administered like the people, or we are administering as a future you. So, therefore, what happens is, since the administration is comprising of the people, human beings, they have mind, and since they have the mind, they behave. People will behave differently. And because of this variation in the behavior, variation in the thinking, variation in the ideology, what happens is people would be taking the decisions with that influence, with the influence of that mind. They will be communicating with the influence of that mind. They would be supervising. They would get motivated by the influence of the mind. So, however trained you may be, you cannot avoid the impact of your mind on the decision that you take, communication you make, and the motivation you take. So all these things would be the behavioral elements. Everything cannot be operated only according to the rules. Right? So when you talk about the administration, Generally, we say that administration has to be made according to the rules and regulations. But usually there will be rule breaking and rule bending. That is, what is rule bending? Rule bending is twisting the rule in your favor if the rule is against you, against your personal interest. Rule breaking also can happen. Either of these two things happen. This is because usually people are human beings. The people who are working in the administration are the human beings. Since they are human beings, they have thinking mind, and the impact of this thinking mind will always be there in their administrative decisions. So we cannot deny this. But suppose as an IAS officer, you will be trained for 2 years. Why you are trained for 2 years? So that you will reduce the impact of your mind on the administration. You can only reduce the influence, but you cannot avoid this influence. You coming from, suppose your background is from a socially deprived class, and you become an administrator. And naturally, it is a natural inclination that you will have a compassion towards your community. Right. So therefore, what you do is you practice the administration in a different dimension, not according to the rules and regulations. Depending upon your social background, depending upon your cultural heritage, you make the administration. However, best efforts you may make to avoid this influence, but still you cannot avoid the influence. You would be carrying the administration only according to your brain influence, how you think, how your emotions are, how your sentiments are. Those things will influence your administration. And all these things would be studied as a part of the administrative behavior. Now, while making the decisions, while communicating with the people, while motivating the people, while leading the people. These are the 4 dimensions of administrative behavior. The 4 dimensions of administrative behavior are decision making, communication, motivation, and leadership. So these 4 things will have the influence of your behavior. As you behave, these things would be carried out. How you think about it. Suppose you lead the people. This depends upon the behavior of the followers as well as yourself. Suppose if the followers are highly self-disciplined, hardly there is anything that the leader has to do. Meaning, hardly there is anything that the leader has to do, meaning, what does it mean? That very little that the leader has to do if the followers are very self-disciplined. Suppose like a teacher who is teaching LKG students, for LKG students, the teacher has to do more work to control the students. So the style of leadership would be different there. While for a professor who is teaching for the postgraduate students, they are the self-disciplined. There is hardly anything that the professor has to do. So based on this, the style of leadership will vary. The style of leadership can be democratic in case of a postgraduate student, and the style of leadership can be despotic in case of a LKG student. So despotic style of leadership means that is the dictatorship style. Democratic, that is based on the participative orientation. There is hardly anything that the leader has to do there. So depending upon the behavior of the people, leader will have to change the behavior. Democratic behavior or despotic behavior, that would be changed. So these 4 aspects, that is decision making, communication, and the motivation and the leadership are the dimensions related to the administrative behavior. Then there is a 4th topic like organizations. In fact, this should have been kept as the first unit, because entire paper 1 is all about the organizations. How to build the organization and how to manage the organization. Organization is not merely about brick and mortar. It is not about the sand and how you build. It is not about rules and regulations based on which you manage the people. It is all about the people. It It is neither brick and mortar and sand, nor it is merely the rules and regulations. They are the structural elements and procedural elements. Then what our organization is all about is, organization is all about people. So what does it mean? People are the key elements in the organization. They make the organization, they unmake the organization. Making the organization, it means they are responsible for the establishment. And if the organization do not collapse because of the earthquakes. Organization do not disappear because of a cyclone. If an organization disappears, that would be basically because of the people. People, because of their decision making, people because of their behavior, they decide the emergence, existence and the disappearance of an organization. So there are many organizations which have been established and that have disappeared also. Suppose the state itself is the biggest organization, the countries generally. So Babur was responsible for the emergence of the Mughal Empire. And the later Mughals were responsible for the disappearance of this Mughal Empire. So because they are not very much bothered about continuation of their power and other things. So they have been responsible for the disappearance of the Mughal Empire. So everything has a reason. And the fundamental reason in the organization for either to emerge or to disappear, the people are the responsible people. Suppose Nokia, might have heard about the Nokia. Hardly people know about the Nokia today. Nokia was the pioneer of the cell phone companies, cell phone instruments. Among all the cell phone companies, it was having the history of largest selling mobile phones in the world. But today it is almost disappeared and it is being taken over by some other company. So how this is possible? Because when the organization is established, there are people in the organization and the organizations will have the rules for the procedure. The rules are necessary, but the rules are necessary for the continuation of the system, not for the disappearance of the system. Rules have to be changed. Rules are supposed to be made, which are supposed to be changed and altered and amended. And if required, the rules have to be repealed. And if you do not do this, the organization itself will collapse. When the tastes and preferences of the people are changing, organizations also have to change. Now, what is the meaning of the term phrase? Organizations have to change. When I say organization have to change, means even the tastes and preferences of the people who are operating the organization should also change. In line with the customer, in line with the consumer. So recently there was a study. People generally shop, and whether shopping is done by the men or women, who will have this general habit of shopping? Usually we believe that women have more habit of shopping, but that is not completely correct, because it is equally done by both men and women. If the men are not shopping, you would not wear the modern clothing, right? So even men also be interested in shopping. And what the study has ultimately concluded is shopping makes the people happy. That is the one reason why the people generally will go for shopping. Now, when you are in a stress, when you are in a depression, if you shop, and the depression will come down. And this consumer behavior, this is the dimension of consumer behavior. And every time you will not go for shopping for the same commodity, right? Suppose already you have a blue jeans. You will not go for the shopping for buying the same color of blue jeans from the same company. You will shop from some other company. If you are buying the same denim, but you buy from a different company. So therefore, people would be doing this shopping based on their tastes and preferences. Because when you go for a shopping, at least window shopping or just browsing shopping, what will happen in your mind? A chemical is released. And what is that chemical? Dopamine. When this dopamine is generated, you will be feeling happy, and that will reduce your stress, and you will be in a good mood. So that is the reason behind. And people would be looking for something new every time, not for the same thing. Suppose when you are browsing through Amazon, and if you are finding the same kind of commodities every time, you will uninstall the app, because every time it is showing the same thing. So people's moods are changing. When the moods are changing, and they will have different tastes and preferences every time. So therefore, what the organizations have to learn from this fundamental consumer behavior. Around the world, in one particular financial year, in 2021-22, 2021 April to 2022 March, the people have went to the shopping and they have spent almost $27 trillion around the world. That is the final outcome of this report. And from this $27,000, what they are doing, they are buying something. Every time they are buying something, and they are buying something newer every time. So therefore, organizations have to change their products according to the changing preferences of the people. So you need to, organizations and their management and the people working in it should coordinate themselves with the people in general. Their ideology should be met with the people's ideology. Otherwise, it is said that the organization will become dinosaurs. Now, what is that organization becoming a dinosaur? A dinosaur is something that has disappeared, extinguished animal. So since it is extinguished, similarly organizations also extinguish. There are thousands of organizations as such, which once upon a time considered to be the organizational oligarchies. Now, what is that oligarchy? Organizational oligarchy is a very huge organization being operated by multiple managements, not a single management. Something like bigger than the multinational corporation. The first ever organizational oligarchy or the multinational corporation in the world has disappeared because the people have not managed it properly. That is East India Company. East India Company was the first multinational corporation and an organizational oligarchy. And this East India Company, which was having the business around the world, instead of carrying its expertise in particular field, has shifted into other fields also. The expertise of the East India Company was only in the business. But what the East India Company has started doing, instead of doing the business, carrying the business, it has shifted to the politics also. Started capturing the political streams of the state. So that has disturbed the system of administration, and the East India Company, once upon a time the biggest multinational corporation that the world has ever witnessed. So such a huge organization has no survival today. Meaning, even such companies like East India Company will disappear if the people in them are not properly managing it. So therefore, even several contemporary organizations also on the verge of disappearance in the future, in the near future. So that is, they're all studied as a part of this organization, how organizations are established and how they have to be managed by the people, and various types of organizations and various forms of organization. They're all studied as a part of this chapter called organization. And another theoretical area is comparative public administration. So this is the chapter number 7. Comparative Public Administration, chapter number 7. So this comparative public administration is all about comparison of administrative systems of one country with another country. So that is administration in India to be compared with administration in America. Administration in India to be compared with administration in Africa. So there are various types of countries. Developed countries and developing countries. So comparison of countries in the developed world with the developing world. Or there are still backward countries in the sub-Saharan Africa. There are poor countries in the sub-Saharan Africa and comparison of a developing country with the poor countries. Or otherwise we can also classify the countries into Western countries and non-Western countries. Another classification can be colonial countries and non-colonial countries. So colonial countries are the countries like India and other Commonwealth nations. And colonial rulers are there. Most of the European governments are the colonial rulers. Whether it is Britain or France or Sweden, Spain, Dutch, they are all the colonial rulers. So comparison of the administration between colonial rulers and colonial ruled, the colonial and the non-colonial. So those things would be studied as a part of this comparative public administration. Comparison of administrative systems of one country with another country. Why this comparison is necessary? Suppose when you make a comparison of India and America, how do you make the comparison? In India there is democracy. There are two dimensions of comparison. One is similarities. You have to find out the similarities. Second, you have to find out the differences. So what are the similarities between the two countries? Both are democracies. And what is the difference? India is a parliamentary democracy, America is a presidential democracy. And in India we have a quasi-federal system, America has a classical federalism. So such kind of differences would be drawn between the two countries when make a comparison. Based on this comparison, what would be the advantage? There should be some advantage when you make a comparison. The advantage is you develop and improve the administrative system based on the comparison. Suppose generally parents compare the children to learn the life lessons from your neighborhood. So this comparison, what is the purpose of the comparison? So that the child will learn from the good behavior of the other child, of your neighbor. And similarly, when the nations are compared, the comparison is intended to learning some good elements of administration from other countries. So, because suppose there is a person who is sharpening a knife and he has an intention to kill someone with that knife, but the way in which he is sharpening the knife is very skillful and artistic. So when you see this person, you should learn from that person. What is that you have to learn from that person? The skill with which he is sharpening the knife. But you should avoid the intention with which he is sharpening the knife. That is, to kill someone is the intention. So when you observe, when you make a comparison, behind every comparison, behind everything, there will be both good and bad. And intelligence lies in borrowing the good things and avoiding the bad things from the process of comparison. So that is the comparative public administration. And the sixth chapter is public policy. The chapter 10. Public policy in the chapter 10. So public policy is all about what government do and what government do not do, both. If the government prefers to do something, that is public policy. If the government prefers not to do something, that is also a public policy. So it is all about what government do and what government don't do. So we have, suppose, several public policies like education policy. We have a new education policy published by the government in 2020 during the lockdown time. Then we have a health policy published in 2017. So, as such, we have a series of policies for everything. To deal with the agriculture policy. To deal with the industries, industrial policy. Aye. So, to deal with the infrastructure policy. For every administrative work, before doing the work, how the work has to be done and how it should not be done. Both are prescribed in the policy itself. Suppose if you have the education policy, what does it prescribe? It prescribes about how the education system should be at the primary level, secondary level and higher education level. How it should not be is also mentioned in the policy. Certain old practices have been done away with. Suppose after the post-graduation, what is the usual course that you used to take up after the post-graduation? This is the MPhil. And after the MPhil, 1.5 year of MPhil, there will be PhD. This is the usual procedure. But now in the new education policy, MPhil is no more. MPhil is being abolished. That is directly after the post-graduation, you will go to the PhD research. So that is a kind of things incorporated as a part of the public policy, either to do something or not to do something. What the government does and what the government prefers not to do. Both are public policies. And what theoretical models that the government would adopt in making the policies. Because when a new policy is prepared, is formulated, there will be some reason. The reason can be global changes, global conditions. Or the reason can be the demands from the people or the change in the government itself. Suppose when there is a war between Russia and Ukraine. When there is a war between the Russia and Ukraine, India's fuel policy has changed. How India's fuel policy has changed, apart from change in the foreign policy. We have changed the foreign policy. Earlier we used to get influenced by the countries around the world. If you are taking some measure, but now we are not bothered about any other country except the interest of India. So a new foreign minister, Jaishankar, is being appointed as a foreign affairs minister, who was ex-bureaucrat and who has worked as a foreign secretary and who was an IFS officer. As soon as he retired, he was appointed as a minister in the government of India as a foreign affairs minister. And he knows all the subject because he is a bureaucrat. When you know some subject, that is the knowledge. And usually a bureaucrat will have this power of knowledge. And the power of knowledge of a bureaucrat is known as a noetic power. And this noetic power, the person having this noetic power being appointed as a minister, a foreign secretary, soon after the retirement, being appointed as the foreign affairs minister. And he has a lot of knowledge about the foreign policy. Who is doing what? So when sanctions are imposed, immediately after the Russian and Ukrainian war, European governments and America have together imposed the sanctions on the countries not to carry business with Russia, more particularly oil business. But India did not succumb to those pressures. So instead of succumbing to those pressures, informal pressures, we started buying more oil from Russia. Because Russia is offering the oil at almost 25% discount. So India is doing shopping with Russia. It is buying oil from Russia because you are getting it at a cheaper cost. When you are getting it at a cheaper cost, you are saving the foreign exchange reserves. So why should India's interest should be at a stake if somebody is imposing the sanctions on you? Whether Russia is doing right or wrong, nobody can decide whether it is doing right or wrong. So whatever policy was about that, India's foreign policy regarding the Russia's action against Ukraine, the same thing. We don't comment anything about Russia's attack. We neither support Russia nor support Ukraine. So gone are the days when we were talking only about the peace. Once upon a time, we were talking only about the peace. And peace and solidarity will give nothing. War has brought us the development. War has saved our what? The foreign exchange resources. Everybody thinks that war is bad. But war is also good for us. War is also good for Russia. Because before the commencement of the war, $1 was almost 86 rubles. Ruble was more weaker than India's rupee. And now, what is the cost of ruble? Cost of dollar in terms of ruble is only 55 rupees, 55 rubles. Before the commencement of the war, it was 86. After 5 months of the war, it is 55. 55 to 58, it is all between that. So that indicates that the ruble has strengthened against the rupee. And even India's rupee is generally people saying that India's rupee has become weaker in comparison to the dollar. It has gone to the lowest levels ever in the history. That is at the rate of 80 rupees, you are getting a dollar. But these intellectuals are hiding a point. Dollar is getting stronger against all the currencies in the world. All the currencies in the world, not just India's currencies. While India's rupee is getting stronger in terms of other currencies. India's rupee is getting stronger in terms of other currencies in the world. Once upon a time, that means a few years ago, what was India's rupee in terms of ruble or in terms of pound or any other currency? India was having a weaker comparison. But today it is stronger in comparison to other currencies in the world. Almost India's rupee has gone stronger in the last few years, stronger than any other currency in the world. Dollar comparison is West. Why dollar comparison is West? Now dollar is also getting weak in the future, in the near future. And dollar is becoming a scarce commodity, and it is going to become a threat to the domestic trade of America. The more stronger the dollar will convert, and the dearer will be the business in America. People will not import commodities from America. Why people will not import commodities? Because the dollar is getting stronger. When it is getting stronger, people will not buy the things from there. So ultimately it will go into the recession. Already the USA is on the verge of recession, at the threshold of the recession. And in a few months it will collapse into the system. So therefore what happens is, whatever the government do and whatever the government do not do is all about the foreign policy with reference to other countries. That depends upon various theories. Theories of public policy. The theories of public policy are like what are the factors that influence your policy? The global factors influences the foreign policy. Global factors are influencing the domestic policy. Either your Ministry of Home or Education policy, or the industrial policy, fuel policy or environmental policy, population policy, agriculture policy. Everything is connected to various conditions. The demands of the people, the changing preferences of the people, or global conditions around the world. They're all the influential factors in making the policy. So how these policies are made, implemented and evaluated. There are three areas related to the policies. That is making the policy, implementing the policy and evaluating the policy. Three phases of the policy. Policy making is done by the lawmakers. Policy execution is done by the bureaucrats. Policy evaluation is done by some independent agencies. So evaluation is connected with to see whether the policy is successful or not. If the policy is not successful, suggestions will be made either to improve the policy or to repeal the policy totally, if there is an opposition. The purpose of the policy evaluation. So there are all the theory related areas. And in the practice related areas, what are the concepts? In the practice of public administration, you have accountability and control. So this concept of accountability and control is about making the administration answerable. So administration in a democracy is supposed to be answerable. Accountability is answerability. To make the administration answerable, you need to control the administration. Why the administration has to be answerable? Hmm? Yes, even a scheme, government scheme is also a part of the policy. As I told you, whatever the government does is policy, connected with some major element. Suppose government giving money transfers is related to the welfare policy. So everything, whatever the government is doing, is a part of the public policy. Either doing or not doing something also. The government has decided to do. Government has decided to purchase oil from Russia is a public policy. Government decided to not to follow the sanctions imposed by America. Decided not to follow sanctions. Not to succumb by the sanctions. So then, actually there was a rule in America. There was a law in America. The law says that any enemy, any country which is carrying the business with America's enemy would have to face the sanctions. And what are the sanctions? Sanction means some kind of punishment. What kind of punishment that America can impose on the governments? Maximum, it will stop trading with that country. So if America stops trading with India, who will be at a loss? India will be at a loss. Equally, America is also at a loss. Because we are transferring thousands and millions of dollars to American government every year, either in the form of business directly or in the form of migrations. Almost 25% of the skilled human resources in America are from India. And in most of the American universities, the people who are studying are from India. So they're all paying the fees. They're not taking the education free of cost. They're paying the fees. So America would lose that income if India is denied of any benefits from America. So India has denied the sanctions imposed by American government. What American government has did? American government has amended its own law. The law is known as the CATSA. The CATSA Act is being amended to give exemption to the sanctions imposed by American government. So such kind of things are a part of the policy. Policy, you do something is a policy. If you don't do something is also a policy. And this accountability and control. Administrative system in a democracy is supposed to be answerable. Answerability of administration is accountability. And to make the administration answerable, you need to control it. And so this accountability, to whom you have to be accountable, who has to control the administration in a democratic government. Administration should be controlled by legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Apart from that, administration is also supposed to be controlled by the citizens and the civil society, and also the media, pressure groups. They're all the agencies to control the administration, formal agencies and informal agencies. Formal agencies are the agencies incorporated in the constitution, legislature, executive, and judiciary. They control the administration. Informal agencies are the agencies not incorporated in the constitution, that the civil society, pressure groups, citizens, media, even they also control the government, administrative system. So how this administrative system is controlled would be studied here. And there is administrative law. The law dealing exclusively with the administration is the administrative law. The law that deals with the administration exclusively is the administrative law. Because we have this concept, we know this concept called rule of law. So what is the rule of law? A rule according to the law is the rule of law. If you rule the people, that is administer the people, according to the law is the rule of law, not by the personal whimsical fancies of the ruler. So rulers will have a tendency to use their personal whimsical fancies. Whimsical fancies means as you wish to do things. Administration should not be carried according to the personal wishes. It should be carried according to the law. Carrying the administration according to the law is the rule of law, and which is common for all. The implication of the rule of law is all are equal before the law. What is that all are equal before the law? Irrespective of the ruler and the ruled, everybody has to obey the law. Both rulers and the ruled will have to obey the law. That is the rule of law, implication of rule of law. Right. The opposite of the rule of law is the administrative law. Law separately for the administrator. The administrative system should have some exemptions, and those exemptions would be studied as a part of the administrative law. Now, why the administration should have the exemptions? The administrative system should have the exemptions because without these exemptions from the rule of law, administrative system cannot do the things. But suppose if everybody is equal before the law, even chief minister should be equal before the law. But there are some exemptions to the chief minister. Suppose when he is going out, the traffic will be stopped and he will be allowed to go. Can we object this on grounds of rule of law? Chief minister is having some very, very important person status, and because of that very, very important person status, his life may be at a threat. And to protect the life of the chief minister, you are supposed to give him a special privilege. Suppose governors and the president are also having exemption from the rule of law. You cannot force governor or the president to attend the court. You cannot file the criminal cases against them. Even if you have to file a civil case, you have to give a 2 months advance notice. But you cannot insist the president to attend the court. So there are all the exemptions. Suppose parliament members on the floor of the house will have unrestrained freedom of speech. Unlike the general citizens. General citizens have a series of restrictions upon the freedom of speech. But the members of parliament on the floor of the house will have unrestrained freedom of speech subject to the dignity of the decorum of the house. So this administrative law is about the law separately made for the administrator to give him some privileges so that he can carry his administration better. Every bureaucrat will have certain privileged position. Because of that privileged position in their jurisdiction, they will enjoy some special status. And because why this special status is given? This is given so that the administrator can perform the job better. So the law dealing with the administration is the administrative law. And there is development dynamics. So development dynamics deal with how to achieve development, how to bring development in a country. Because after the Second World War, around the world, as new countries have emerged. New countries means the countries which have got the independence for the first time from the colonial rulers. India has got independence after the Second World War. That is after 1945 only India got the independence. And after the Second World War, not only India, along with India, a series of other countries also have got the independence. They were all described as the developing countries. They were neither backward nor developed. And the immediate task of these developing countries is to achieve the development. Right. And this development dynamics tells about how to achieve the development. Since 1950, all these countries were on the verge of development. By 1950, maximum colonial countries have got the freedom. Except a few, 1 or 2 countries. Suppose Thailand has got independence only in 1997. South Africa also was somehow in 1990s only it got independence from the British. So except a couple of countries, remaining all other countries in the world have got independence from their colonial rulers within 5 years after the Second World War. And the immediate task of all these countries is to achieve the development. And how to achieve the development? There are various theories of development, and those theories are applicable. And from 1950s and 70s to 80s, the process of development was different. And since 90s, the development process is different. Till 1980s, development was considered as the task of the state. What is state? State means the government. It was believed that only the government is responsible for achieving the development. But however, since 1990s, non-state actors were also recognized as instruments of development to bring the development in a country. Now, what are the non-state actors? Corporate companies and private companies, and also civil society bodies, means the NGOs, voluntary organizations, can also participate in the developmental process. Because development cannot be enforced from top to the bottom, which is described as a trickle-down theory. A trickle-down theory means development at the highest level. Trickled meaning sprinkled. Developmental results will be sprinkled down to the lower levels. It's a trickle-down approach. But the trickle-down theory is not useful. Development has to be bottom-up. Not from top to the lower level, but should be from bottom to the top. And this bottom-up approach to the development has brought in new agencies of development. Like NGO organizations, voluntary organizations are engaged in the development. Corporate companies are also recognized as instruments of development. Without corporate company, without the participation of the corporate company, no country has achieved the development. The well-developed countries are all the capitalist countries, which are supported adequately by the capitalists. So as long as the business was in the private sector control, countries have grown. And every initiative, every innovation comes from the private sector only. Every initiative in the business. Suppose in India, banks were initiated by the private individuals. Later on, that was in 1969, that the government has taken over them. All the private banks are taken over by the government. So which is absurd. And now the government again reprivatizing those government banks. Once upon a time which were in the private sector. And they were operating very efficiently in those days. And even the civil aviation. Civil aviation was also best example how the government has failed in carrying the business. So the field of civil aviation in India, the initiative come from private company, Tatas. Then it is taken over by the government, Air India, Indian Airlines. Now the government has again privatized to the same company from whom they have taken over. So private sector contributes thoroughly to the development of the nation. If America is developed, it is not because of the government. Who was responsible for the development of America? It was the growth story of development in growth story of America begins with the private companies only. Imagine America without Ford, or imagine America without Microsoft. You can't imagine the growth and development contributed by these people in the private sector. So private sector contributes to the development. Generally, our intellectuals in India always are critical about the capitalists. As if they are, every time they are manipulating the nation, as if. But without the presence of Reliance, without the presence of Ambani, or without the presence of Adani, you cannot imagine the growth story of India. Of course, they may be manipulating the natural resources. But what they are creating? They are creating the wealth. But suppose Adani has recently purchased a port. where all the ports majority of the ports in India are owned by Adani Group. But of course, with the support of government, this is called as a Crony Capitalism. If a capitalist is doing the business with the political support, it is known as a Crony Capitalism. And now Adani has done something that was never done by anybody earlier in India. And that was buying a foreign port. A port in Israel was being purchased by this Adani Group. So is it not a matter of proud for an Indian? How we could able to achieve this growth? That is because of the capitalist. Not by the government. It is not done by the government. Therefore, development is achieved not only by the state. Since 1990, this idea of development has changed from state-led development to non-state-led development. Non-state-led development means development to be led by corporate companies and also the voluntary sector, NGOs. Apart from this, even the people can contribute to the growth, because not only the corporate sector that the growth is contributed by, even the general public also are involved in the process of development, because development should make the people happy, and people would be happy when they have adequate money. Of course, you may argue with me that money alone cannot make the people happy, but without money can you be happy? Without money, if all the wealth is taken away from you, can you be happy without the money? You will be absolutely unhappy. So, therefore, you need to maintain some basic standards of life. Every one of us want to maintain, not need, want to maintain the basic standards of life. When you have to maintain the basic standards of life, what you need to have? Love or affection. Love and affection will not elevate your standards of life. They only create emotions and bondings. Even emotions and bondings will break up when you don't have the money. You have to have minimum money to maintain the relationships. Suppose if you have a girlfriend or if you have a boyfriend, without giving the frequent gifts, can you maintain the relationship? At least you need to talk to them. When you have to talk to them, how do you talk? It is not possible to talk to them only face to face. Always. You have to talk to over the phone. And can you get the phone services without paying the money? So, money will maintain the relationships. May not create the relationship, but they will prevent at least breakup of the relationship. So, everybody has to improve their standards of life. Say, suppose there is a group in the rural areas, you have poverty among the people. How the poverty among the people has to be eradicated? Unless eradication of the poverty is done, people will not be happy. So how the people will be happy? By getting eradicated with the poverty. Therefore, the government is also, since 1970s only, saying that Garibi Hatao. So why the Garibi Hatao? Because it want to make the people happy. Happy people are the satisfied people. Satisfied people are the voters. They vote to continue the satisfaction further. Therefore, all the governments are focusing on the poverty eradication. And the development process is to increase the happiness of the people through improving the standards of life at the grassroots level. And this grassroots level starts with the grassroots level development is made through the self-help groups, suppose. The self-help groups, what the self-help groups will do? The people who are not having any job will form into a group. They start a business by mobilizing the small savings. And after mobilizing the small savings, they start a business. When they start a business, they get the returns. And they increase their revenue. When they increase their revenue, two things happen. Most of the self-help groups are comprising of women, female representatives. So when they are comprising of the female representatives, female members in the self-help group, they are carrying the business in the rural areas. What happened is, first their family incomes increased. when family income increased, because the money is being brought by not only the male member of the family, but also by the female member of the family. If the male member is getting some 10,000 rupees, female member is also bringing 10,000 rupees. Overall, the standard of life can be doubled from the present situation. Second, women now are in a position to make those decisions which they could not make earlier. Suppose if a housewife wanted to get her girl child, go to the school. It used to be opposed by the husband. But now she has a capacity to decide to send her child to the school. And such kind of decisions are now being made by the women because of this financial support that they are getting from being a part of the self-help groups. So when they are improving their standard of life, it is creating a multiplier effect in the economy. So what is that multiplier effect in the economy? They have the increased income, they are purchasing something, and part of their income is also being saved in the banks. Not because self-help groups save their money in the banks. They don't save their money in the home. When they're saving the money in the bank, they're not only getting the interest. That money is also used for the further investments. And overall, they could able to create thousands of crores. An investment of thousands of crores. So it is not just a matter of saving of 1 rupee by a woman per day. Every female member in the self-help groups is saving 1 rupee per day is the norm. 1 rupee seems like very minuscule. But in a self-help group, there will be 20 members. So they are saving 20 rupees a day into 30 days, into 12 months. And there are almost 50 lakh self-help groups around the country. So the total amount of money that they are mobilizing is huge. Is also a process of development from the bottom up. It's a bottom up approach to the development. These corporate companies bring the development from top to the bottom. And the self-help groups will take the development from bottom to the top. So from both the dimensions, how this developmental dynamics means how the strategy of development is changing over a period of time. Dynamic means anything that is supposed to change, is bound to change, is getting changed, is dynamic. Not a static thing. Development is a dynamic thing. And how this is changing. The process of development is changing over a period of time. In 1950s, 60s and 70s, we had a different style of development. Since 1980s, there is a different style of development. And in the 21st century, we have a different style of development. How these approaches to the development are changing. They are all discussed as a part of the development dynamics. Then there is another chapter, that is personnel administration. So this personnel administration deals with employees. Personnel are the staff related areas, the staff related aspects. Right from the recruitment, how the recruitment has to take place. And the way of training to the employees, then paying the salaries to the employees, and the retirement benefits given to the employees. In simple, personnel administration deals with R to R. Recruitment to the retirement. Everything related to the employees in an organization are all discussed as a part of the personnel administration. And financial administration is another area. So this financial administration deals with the budget and post-budgetary activities. In simple, budget and post-budgetary. So budget deals with the income and expenditure estimates of the government. Budget is all about how the government is getting the income and how the government is spending the income and expenditure. Then while getting the income, you have to record those transactions. While spending the income, spending the money, you again have to record those expenditure. So income and expenditure transactions have to be recorded. Recording the income and expenditure transactions is known as the accounting. and that accounting should be studied. And after writing the accounts, after recording the accounts, you need to verify these accounts, whether they have been written rightly or not, legally or not, morally or not. Because while writing the accounts, some people will manipulate. Not in fact some people, but everybody will have a tendency to manipulate the accounts. So it is a normal human tendency to manipulate the accounts for some reason or the other. Some people can be manipulating the accounts for good reason, or some other people will be manipulating the accounts for the bad reasons. Suppose if Robin Hood is an accountant, does Robin Hood manipulate the accounts? Robin Hood, who is Robin Hood? A dacoit. Robin Hood story is a story of a dacoit who used to steal money from the rich people and distribute it among the poor people. Is it good or bad? It's worst, because fundamentally what we have been learning from our childhood, stealing the things is right or wrong, good or bad, worst, not even bad. So what Robin Hood is doing, his intention may be good, but the procedure of doing the things is wrong. So this process of Robin Hood morality is not acceptable under any circumstances. Suppose if you are taking bribe as an officer and you are spending this for the welfare of the downtrodden, still you are doing the wrong thing. Though your intention may be right, but the process of doing the things is wrong, because taking bribe is legally prohibited. Law is more important than the morality. Law should take the precedence over the moral principles. Law determines thereby the morality. Not only the intention should be moral, but also the procedure for achieving these intentions should also be moral. So suppose if this Robin Hood happened to be an accountant, he will manipulate the accounts. Of course, to help the poor people, but still manipulating the accounts is illegal. And when you do the illegal, you are doing immoral naturally. So that accounting has to be verified. The accounts, when they are verified, it is called as the auditing. Verification of the accounts is known as the auditing. So budget, accounting, auditing. And as a part of the income, you have some policies of the government. Monetary policy is one. Monetary policy is a policy to regulate the money supply. To regulate the money supply, you have a monetary policy. To regulate the government taxes, there is a fiscal policy. So this monetary policy and fiscal policy should also be studied as a part of financial administration. And then the techniques of administrative improvement. So these techniques of administrative improvement are about how to improve the administration. So this is chapter 5. So that is the two dimensions of the syllabus, the theoretical areas and practice-oriented areas. According to the sequence of the syllabus, they are the numbers in the brackets I have given. But according to the classification of the syllabus, this is the approach. But the sequence of study should be different again. So the sequence of study, suppose if theories are considered as A and this is the B, section B. The sequence should be like, in the section A, that is the theory part, chapter 2 to be studied first, then chapter 3, and chapter 4. So this should be the first criteria of the sequence of study in the section A. And in the section B, chapter 5 followed by financial administration in the chapter 10. And then chapter 6, nine and 11. So after completion of all this sequence, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, then finally 12th, chapter 1 in section A. So first chapter to be studied at the end, not in the beginning, because after understanding all the subject, it is easy to understand the first chapter. Though it contains, the meaning and scope of public administration, second chapter to 12th chapter is actually the scope of public administration. So scope of public administration deals with what? It deals with what is to be studied in public administration. So what we study in public administration, after studying the entire paper 1, we understood that we have studied the paper 1, that is the scope of public administration. And after studying public administration, we can understand the significance of public administration. So that is where at the end of the syllabus, you have to study significance of public administration, because by the time you understood the importance of public administration both theoretically and in practice. So if you go according to this sequence, you should not study the syllabus in the sequence given in this syllabus given by the UPSC. That has to be reordered, restructured in this sequence. Starting with the chapter 2, as I told you, that it is the heart of the entire syllabus. And in continuation of the administrative thought, we have administrative behavior theories. In continuation of the administrative behavioral theories, there are organizational theories. And in continuation of the organizational theory, there are theories in comparative public administration, and there are theories in public policy. So all these 5 areas, 2, 3, 4, 7, 10, all of them have theories. And those theories should be understood in a sequential order with an interconnectivity. So therefore, you have to first command those theories, then the remaining units. Finally, the first unit. Right. So tomorrow we continue with that.